Her Excellency, Madam Urpilainen of the European Commission, honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I first would like to express my regret for not attending this panel live with you all due to my required presence at cabinet meeting at this stage. I'm delighted for the opportunity to speak at this higher level session on sustainable finance to leave no one behind. And I send my congratulations to the European Commission for organizing this panel at such an opportune time. The COVID-19 pandemic has emphasized more than ever the need for greater coordination among financial institutions, governments, and the private sector in order to build a cohesive financial system that provides equal opportunities for developed and developing countries to finance sustainably their economies. As the COVID-19 pandemic has persisted, the economic inequalities between developed and developing countries have continued to grow, with differing vaccine acquisition and financing strategies, abilities to use monetary policy to inject the necessary liquidity in the system, and financing terms as well as conditions that oftentimes do not match the project's realities. Against this backdrop, I propose two ways in which we can craft this ideal financial system that will enable the proliferation of private capital flows towards developing nations. The first is to ensure the ability to finance the structural transformation of developing economies, particularly in Africa. Against this backdrop, I would propose two ways in which we can craft this ideal financial system that will enable the proliferation of private capital flows towards developing countries. The first is to ensure the ability to finance the structural transformation of developing economies, particularly in Africa. This implies the ability to provide concessional terms and conditions that matches the asset life and expand the sector's eligibility for such a concessional financing. Export finance, or what we call export credit, alongside commercial loans and MDB financing, have also been used by our country to accompany Senegal's structural transformation and for the Sustainable Development Goals. However, such an instrument still comes with several constraints in terms of processes, the content of commercial contracts, the overall higher cost, considering the premium to be paid, the interest rate, and the government's contribution that is required, which is usually funded with expensive commercial credits. Also, the maturities imposed by OECD rules can be quite short compared to the lifetime of the assets to be financed. Channeling more ECA's funds to finance the achievement of SDGs will require a more creative approach with the ability to adapt the product to the needs of our countries. Ways of making such a financing more attractive are to extend the maturities to 30 years or 40 years at an interest rate below 1%. This will allow to fund important rail projects, for example, whose economic benefits are not felt for the first 1 to 2 decades after construction. Or to fund the employment, for example, of women and youth through rural and urban microfinance institutions or instruments set up by the state, such as the Delegation for Rapid Entrepreneurship in Senegal. This brings me to the point regarding eligible sectors. Infrastructure and energy are the backbones of our economies. In Senegal, we have ambitious roads and rail projects as well as gas-to-power projects to enable us to become a middle-income country by 2035, as stated in our Emerging Senegal plan. But to make this vision a reality, we need such sectors with long-term assets to benefit from long-term concessional financing. Building out infrastructure will naturally increase the private sector capital flow into our economies. But to make this vision a reality, we need such sectors with long-term assets to benefit from long-term concessional financing. Building our infrastructure will naturally increase the attractiveness to our economies to the private sector. In Senegal, for example, 39% of the financing of our economic recovery plan will come from the private sector. But effectively mobilizing this piece of financing will require a strong public investment in a sustainable manner in relation to the SDGs to already equip the private investors with the backbone necessary to generate financial and social returns. The second idea, to invest in structural reforms to increase our competitiveness. In the case of Senegal, we have recently revamped our PPP law, which will attract international capital and expertise to carry out our critical projects. We are also creating a fund that will provide financing to structure projects in order to de-risk them, and thereby providing more attractive and more predictable returns for investors. The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded everyone of the need to work together to solve a global problem. Financing has long been a powerful tool to respond to global crises. Let us collectively embark on this new paradigm shift and provide access to finance in a more equal manner and in a more equitable manner, I would say. The allocation of SDRs is a good step forward, and now we need the SDRs reallocation to provide more resources for vaccine production, vaccine acquisition, and for the economic recovery needed to leave no one behind. Thank you for your kind attention.